Fluckins Taxidermy here. Today's the day we're going to be preserving our special cycloptic friend. I've been waiting a while so I could do a whole bunch of wet specimens all in one batch, so this will be a part of that.
I will be using formaldehyde to fix my specimens today. Formaldehyde is a gas with multiple purposes like treating plywood, adhesives, insulation, etc. It is used in these things because it has excellent polymerizing properties. What I mean by that is that it is great at just making things stick together. In organic tissues, it strengthens the link between primary amino acids in proteins. This makes the tissues bind together, forming a kind of rubbery toy texture. First, I'll be applying my PPE. The chemicals I'll be using today are biological irritants and carcinogenic over prolonged exposure. Make sure to read up on MSDS for any chemicals you use, not only so you know what precautions to take, but also how to properly administer first aid or clean up spills. I'll be using formaldehyde that has been stabilized in a liquid mixture of methanol and water at about 37% strength. From here, I'll dilute it with distilled water, 1 part formaldehyde to 9 parts water. This makes a 10% solution called Formalin. Whenever possible, I use lab-grade glassware when I'm working with chemicals. Let's take a look at the species I'll be working with today. Here we have a partially eaten koi fish, a Pac-Man frog, a large gecko, a heart and some intestinal worms from a raccoon, a smaller gecko. This is a rubber boa found locally dead in the wild. Here's a small tortoise and another gecko. A larger gecko, unsure what type. Here we have a Halloween crab, not a desert hairy scorpion like on the lid. This was a very special chameleon from another rescue. And some baby raccoons. And of course, the whole reason for this video. Our Cyclops bunny. We'll go ahead and start with him. Many of these specimens came from a local reptile rescue. Unfortunately, you can't save them all. I made sure to leave a donation so that they are able to further help any future animals. Now, normally for wet specimens, it's good practice to inject with fresh formalin, but you can always place a specimen in used formalin for fixing purposes. But when you have special specimens or ones that you would like to keep scientifically separated, genetically pure, then you would want to use fresh chemicals for that specimen throughout the whole process, which I will be doing with this rabbit, but as you'll see later, I'll be using used chemicals as well. I always start in existing holes in the body. I will go in through the mouth to get to the stomach. I will go in through the nose to fix the brain. In this case, I did not want to go in through the delicate nose of this Cyclops. I think I ended up going in through the ear. You can poke right in through the anus to get all the lower bowels, which is particularly important. The guts are where you're most likely to start rotting, and the formalin will prevent decay and the rotting process, so you want to get that in there anywhere there could be bacteria to rot. It also helps push feces out, which can cloud your solution later, so as much of that you can clean out, the better. Other places I will enter is the belly button on a baby or fetal animal. There's already a small hole there. I can get several angles up into the gut. You can see that I've pumped so much into it, it's starting to be a little plump and leaking a little bit, which is about right where I want it. It's okay if it's a little plump because later in the process the fluids will just move out via osmosis and even out. Here I'll just do a quick time lapse of some of the other species. The frog, the fish, the geckos. As stated earlier in our chemistry lesson, formalin fixes these tissues by making the amino acids stick together more, in the process killing bacteria, etc. But over time it does develop kind of a rubbery texture, which is right where you want it to be, and then you take it out of the formalin. Depending on the size of the specimen, it could take some weeks. Smaller ones could take a few days. If you leave it in too long, it will become too stiff to the point where it's a little brittle. Like if you were to try and move an arm, it would just snap off. So there is a sweet spot you want to take it out. Here's that rubber boa. I went into the mouth and every couple inches along the body, making sure you get all organs, muscle tissues, under the skin sometimes. This one I wanted to wrap up a little bit, give it a coil. I ended up moving it to a different jar later, but you get the idea. Now I'm getting those hearts, and it's making my formalin bucket a little bloody there, which is fine. That's why I separated out this bucket. I knew it was going to get dirty. Here are those intestinal worms. Super fun to play with. I'm not sure if that's one worm or a whole colony of them, but it was pulled from the abdominal cavity of a raccoon. I do what I can to inject a little bit into the worm. Unfortunately, formalin is also very caustic. On these more delicate specimens like the reptiles, amphibians, and fish, it hurts them a lot. You'll see later when they come out, they will be different colored. They lose a lot of their color. It's kind of a shame to do beautifully colored specimens like a chameleon in formalin, just because it dulls it out so much. The trick to properly fixing a specimen in formalin is to make sure that every tissue in the body gets formalin injected into it. With the chameleon, I tried to go the extra mile. I wanted it to fix it to this stick in a particular pose. So after injecting it with formalin, I used pins to hold it to the stick while it's being fixed in formalin. Hopefully that'll turn out. We'll see. So now they're all injected. I'm grabbing my big bottle of used formalin. That's what it looks like after the specimens have been sitting in it for a week or two. So that's step one. Stay tuned for the upcoming part 2. We'll see what these specimens look like after they've been formalin fixed, and we'll start the leaching process. We want to get as much formalin out as we can before we store them permanently. Also, it's very good practice to dispose of your chemicals properly. So I just took this empty water jug and I'll be making it my formalin waste bucket so that I can dispose of it properly through a chemical waste company. Thanks for sticking around. If you've made it this far, you definitely owe me a like. If you enjoyed what you saw, smash that subscribe button so you can see part 2, where we leach the formalin out of these specimens and prepare them for permanent storage. And leave a comment below on what you might want to see in the future.